Hey everybody, welcome back to Conquest of Ea, and it's really awesome to get to record a video so soon after our last one. I know it was a while before that one, so I figured I'd do two videos here rapid fire. And today we're going to talk about the 100 Kingdoms Chapter Mage. I did a Chapter Mage video, I guess a few months ago, when it was Conquest 1.5, and just so much has changed, I mean, in the 100 Kingdoms faction overall, and especially with the Chapter Mage, that it definitely needs a new video. One player in my meta, when we had our event this past weekend, was using the Chapter Mage, using the Air Mage, which I kind of thought was like a dead thing. She was super good back when Conquest first came out. And then a lot of people moved over to the Water Mage for the healing, but he was making really, really good use of that with a bunch of stands of Longbowmen. Probably too many stands of Longbowmen. If you asked him, he would probably tell you. So I figure now is a good time to make another Chapter Mage video and talk about what she does in the new Conquest 2.0. And before we get into talking about the Chapter Mage, I just want to remind everybody that we are officially sponsored by Bellum Games, and we have a link below in the description of this video. It'll take you over to their web store, either the US or the EU link, depending on where you live. And if you make some orders, anything over $100 is free shipping, which is awesome. And then when you do that, using that link, a small kickback comes back to the channel. So if you need new models, like the new 100 Kingdoms Ashen, I don't know what I just clicked there, the new 100 Kingdoms Ashen Dawn, go ahead and click that and purchase through that link. We really appreciate it. If you don't need any new models right now, or you're not in a position to get any more models, definitely understand. Just throw a like and subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that as well. It's another great way to support the channel. So thanks everybody for watching, and then we'll get into talking about the Chapter Mage. Alright, so I just pulled up Parabellum's Army Builder. That's one thing I just love about Parabellum is all the rules are completely free on their website. The game rules, the scenario pack, this army builder is on their website with all of the armies and their units and regiments. And they also have an app as well that has, it looks just like this, just on your phone. So we can just pull it up and look right at the Chapter Mage stats. So we don't really care about her defensive stats or her offensive output like we would with some characters. Just know that if you get dueled with her, she's going to die. She's defense 1, so make sure she's not, charging in there getting dueled by any other characters that you can't refuse, or you don't want to refuse to break the unit, because she will die and then you'll lose your Chapter Mage. That's the kind of pro tips you can expect here on the channel. Don't duel with your mages, so if you want more of that, like and subscribe. I appreciate it. But what she is actually there for is her spells, which we're going to click on now. She has 4 schools. And you pick one of these schools, you get both of the spells in the school for free. And we'll check out with water, which is usually what I go with, which is the healing school, I guess. And Nunia's Tears is the healing spell. So it's range itself, and we'll talk about how you can buff that range here in a minute. But you can buff it out to 8 inches with their self-range spells. So just keep that in mind as we talk about these. For each success, the target regiment heals 1 wound. And in addition, they reroll their morale test of 6 until the end of the round. So you can see it's not scaling, so it's not going to get any harder to cast. You just need 2 successes to cast it, just like any other base spell in the game. And every success you get, so every 3 or under you roll, you heal 1 wound. This is not as good as it used to be, because it used to be 2 heals per 1 success, but they've dropped it down to 1, and healing in the new version of the game has gotten a little worse, because you have to heal a half stand before you can get a full stand back. So it's the only way to get healing in 100 Kingdoms, so it's still very, very good, and being able to push it out 8 inches is awesome. So if you're Men-at-Arms, or you're Steel Legion, or taking a lot of hits, you can just heal it back with a Chapter Mage, and you're really going to get a lot of value out of the spell, even though it's not as good as it used to be. And the reroll morale test of 6, that's just an added bonus, don't forget about that. But morale damage can really hurt some 100 Kingdoms units, and that reroll can help, swing it from a real bad morale test where you're losing another stand to where you're just losing maybe 2 wounds instead. The second one is actually a pretty useful spell, especially with all the shooting that's still in the meta, even though shooting got toned down a little bit in this last balance patch. It's range of self. 2-3, this is scaling, so if you cast it on the bigger regiments, it's going to get a little harder to cast. And then any enemy regiments performing volley actions into that regiment that you cast it on are going to treat the barrage value as half, rounding up. What's really cool about this is it doesn't say count as obscured. So you can stack this with being obscured just from the way I read it. If I'm crazy wrong, definitely let me know down in the comments. But other rules that I've seen like this say count the unit as obscured. So you would count half the barrage. But this one just says treat its unmodified barrage value as it were half. So you have the unmodified barrage value, and then you'd half that if you were obscured. Seems good to me, especially if you're playing like Shooting Dwag, Vanguard Clone Infiltrator, stuff like that. I really like this as an all-rounder school. It's what I think you'll take the majority of the time. Let's look at the fire school. I'm sure y'all can guess this is just going to be like the damage school because it has fire dart, 14-inch range, 2-3, so you just need those 2 successes. And you're going to get 1 hit per success. And you're going to have armor pierce 2. 14 inches is not a ton of range, but she might be in something like mercenary crossbowmen who are going to add some of their shooting. And actually, we'll talk about Heirloom. You can give the Chapter Mage that will give her a pretty good shooting attack as well. So giving her fire dart, an Heirloom with the shooting, and then putting her in some crossbows, she can really throw out a lot of shooting casting this spell. And then there's also Kindle Courage. I doubt you'll ever cast this. I mean, you get inspired on the unit, which is kind of cool, but like if the unit's in combat, you're just going to inspire clash anyway. If they charge, they're going to be inspired. So I don't really see a lot of, maybe if you need a combat reform, then they'd be inspired. Combat reform can fight, but that's such a corner case. +1 resolve's okay, and you know we can take a lot of damage to resolve, but really this is your I'm going to shoot with crossbows and fire dart people school. The School of Earth I really think is cool. I just don't think you're ever going to take it, but if anybody has any stories of like they've used stone spikes or earth to mud to really slow some people down or stop impact, definitely let me know. These are the kind of plays I like dream of making on the Conquest table. Earth to mud, range 16 inches, a 2-3 scaling. So if your target regiment declares a charge or a march, it can only do its first action. And if it charges or marches its first action, it can't take a second march action that round. So you want to cast this somebody right at 16 inches away. So then that's a really they're not charging you at that point because they're not going to move charge. They're just going to get stuck. This is really going to stop cavalry from getting impact attacks, any fast brutes from getting into you, even things like the Abomination from charging you. And then Stone Spikes is same, range of self, scaling, and then target regiment. If you're the target of a charge, you're going to suffer -2 impacts, special rules to that regiment that's charging you to a minimum of 0. This is okay. You can push this out 8 inches away if you give her Supremacy ability. But like impact -2, a lot of stuff has impact 3. I mean, if your opponent move charges and they're only getting 1 impact attack per model, that's pretty good. But like, is that the only reason you're taking a mage? Probably not. And School of Air is the last one, which I think is probably the second best one behind Water. Seeking Winds is really good as adding +1 barrage to the target regiment. So you can really get longbowmen up there to shoot. Even just putting this on regular crossbowmen is not bad. And then our next spell is Guide, where you just re-roll 6s to hit in the volley action. Both of these are really, really good. She can only cast 1 spell. There's no way for her to cast twice. So you'd have to really choose between Guide and Seeking Winds. Alright, and let's talk about her Supremacy ability next, because I did mention that a couple times. So 100 Kingdoms now can select 2 Warlords for free, and if I'm taking a Chapter Mage, she's definitely my second Warlord basically every time. Because enemy spellcasters selecting a friendly regiment as the target of their spellcasting action count as being affected by enemy interference. So anytime your opponent spellcaster casts on one of their own regiments, it's going to be harder for them to cast the spells, which is really, really cool. It's going to make them buffing their units just that much harder, and they might not get those buffs off, which is really, really good. This happens no matter where she is on the table. As long as she's out there, you're getting this buff. And then in addition, she gets to cast those range of self spells out to 8 inches, which I talked about earlier. And now let's look at some heirlooms she can take. The one that I basically always give her is the Kiss Farewell for 30 points. She usually, for me, goes in a ranged unit of crossbows, because she can only take crossbows and men-at-arms in her warband. So just throwing this on there where she gets Barrage 3, 18 inches deadly shots. It's actually going to give her Barrage plus 3 to get her to Barrage 7, because she already comes with Barrage. And just that many deadly shots is awesome, because when your opponent rolls 6s, it counts as 2 wounds. And she is Volley 3, so if the regiment takes aim, she's hitting on 4s with 7 shots, deadly shots, which is awesome. You can see she's a Wizard level 5, so I would definitely buff her up with a retinue of Arcane 1 to get to that Wizard level 6, so you're rolling more dice to heal or more chances. And then if any of the spells that you're taking require scaling, definitely Arcane 2 to make that regiment 2 less stands for the purposes of scaling, to make it just that much easier to cast. Basically, you want to spend the points on the mage to make sure her spells goes off, because they're so important. She can only cast 1 per round. You don't want to miss the chance of making the spells go off. In her Arcane Tier 3, she always treats 1 failed spellcasting dice as a success. I usually take all 3 of these tiers, and you can see kind of how she gets slightly expensive, how I take her with a Kiss Farewell at 155 points. And last, she has some Masteries that we can look at. You're going to take none of the tactical ever on her. Magus is pretty cool. You reduce the number of additional successes due to scaling from -1 to a minimum of 0. This is just better than the count as 2 stands less, because it just knocks you down a whole scaling level. But it is 30 points, and I found just a 155 point mage with the Arcane 3 has been fine for me. But if you find yourself not casting the spells you want due to giant unit sizes, just know that you have this option for 30 more points. And Focused, you have to be a Tier 3, so it's adding on 15 points to make her 170. And you can re-roll 2 of the failed dice. If you wanted a super healing, no Biomancer healing here in 100 Kingdoms, but this is as good as you'll get. Throw in the Focus for 170 points, and at that, we are going to, for each success you heal 1 wound. She rolls 7 dice, re-rolling 2 of them, and then counting 1 of the fails as a success, you're going to heal a bunch of wounds back. Again, not as many as a Biomancer, but that's kind of as close as we can get.